The invention of the bow and arrow was prehistoric, dating back over 60,000 years ago. The bow was first constructed from bone and used to hunt wild animals. Arrows were made from lightweight bone and feathered flanges. They were first used as battle weapons by the Huns and Mongols, and were made of bent and hardened wood and animal horns. This weaponry was also developed to be used on horseback by shortening the limbs and making it easier to maneuver the armory from side to side. This was the most lethal weapon until the invention of the pistol. Eventually, a bow that required less physical skill was developed, the crossbow. It was developed in ancient times, but wasn't perfected until the Middle Ages, due to its structure. It is less effective in long ranges and is mostly accurate in medium or short range. It consists of the bow arms and string lying horizontally on a shaft, with a trigger mechanism posted at the opposite end. This was developed to be made of lightweight metal and plastic, making it a more precise aim and shot for near objects. In modern times, the most common forms of bows used for recreational hunting are the crossbow and mechanical bow. The crossbow contains a safety feature that prevents dry firing with no arrow. Since dry firing can damage the bow, there is a trigger, the one in pushing with my thumb, that must be pushed to fire when there is no arrow present.
The concept that I decided to solve for was projectile motion. First, I solved for the crossbow. I found a VI of 102 meters per second using an app because it wasn't very accurate with mean timing. And I also used an app to find my delta, which was 3 degrees above the horizontal. I found my X and Y equations and plugged it into my total equation. Eventually, I solved for delta t equals 0, or v sine theta minus 1/2 ay delta t equals 0. I brought that down, plugged in my givens, and wound up with 1 second as the time of flight. Next, I solved for my mechanical bow. My VI I found was 76 meters per second. My theta was the exact same, so 3 degrees. I plugged in the same equation, and at the end I got 8 times 10 to the negative 1 seconds as my time of flight. One concept that I did not calculate but observed is the force of tension. Here you can see the tension decreasing as the shot is fired and the arms relax. From the side angle, you can also see the tension decrease as the arms relax when the shot is fired. There's also a very large difference in the forces of tension between the two bows. For example, this bow had a 65-pound draw weight, which made it impossible for me to cock or fire it. Another concept that I did not calculate was the force of friction that the arrow has on the bow, as well as the friction that the bow has on the arrow, so F1 on 2, F2 on 1. This is the exact same force, just as a view from above. When the shot is fired and the arrow leaves, the force of friction that they have on each other. The last concept that I explored was forces. In this example, you can see the force applied, which is the arrow embedding itself in the target, and the resistive force that stops it from going through. This force is a little bit harder to catch since the arrow embeds itself almost entirely into the block, which was not planned. But this is also an applied force embedding itself into the block, and the resistive force, or the kinetic force, bouncing back. And clearly there was a little bit of space in there, a little bit of air pockets that allowed the arrow to go farther in. And in my last example of forces, this happens when your arrow hits a tree. The arrow didn't embed itself farther into the tree, which means it was more dense and had more of a resistive force. So that was also kind of cool to learn, even if it was unplanned. And here you can see that my bow was raised to an angle of elevation. It might be a bit hard to spot, but it was centered on the O of the block word on there. And that's how I calculated my 3-degree angle of elevation from the horizontal. And just another feature tying back to my tension. This mechanism in my dad's hand is the trigger. That little, the actual trigger part is located just where his knuckle is. So he pulls back, increases tension, pulls on that trigger when ready, and it releases those clips that are around the string, and that's how the tension decreases when the shot is fired.